evening. Welcome to the March 13th, 2018 Winston-Salem Forsyth County School Board meeting. We will begin this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation. If I would ask you to all please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Father, I ask that you inspire all of us to be your shining lights in our schools and in our communities by being role models and mentors for those in our younger generations. Lord, grant us all who are involved in our education system the wisdom and the knowledge and the skills to teach students and to make our schools a place where students learn, Lord, not only knowledge, but they also see and learn morality and integrity and kindness. Lord, I pray that you, Lord, I pray and I uplift our staff and our students and their families. Father, fill their lives with your presence, giving them abundant love and unsurpassing peace and understanding. In all that we do, we give glory to you. Amen. You may be seated. So board members, we have our agenda in front of us this evening. I do not think we have any changes to our agenda, so do I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Mr. Singletary. Second, Mr. Johnson. All in favor? Thank you. Before we begin our special recognitions this evening, I would like to recognize one of our county commissioners that is with us this evening. Thank you, Mr. Elamine, for being here with us. Thank you always for your support for our schools and for our kids. Also, we're March the 13th, but we've had some unusual weather, as you know. And with school being closed on Monday and some ice and things like that, we would like to thank all of those behind the scenes in our operations and maintenance, the countless people who really made today happen in transportation for our kids to be able to be transported and have a safe day at school for our students and staff. So we want to thank them, and Daryl, if you'll pass that along to all of those that made that happen. We really do appreciate that. At this time, I'd like to recognize John Sullivan, who will recognize our athletic trainers. And John, thank you. We know we have met you at Colonelsville Elementary, yes. I believe the first day that maybe you were on the job, so it's good to have you with us tonight.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Chairman Jones, members of the board, it's March is National Athletic Trainers Month. And with us tonight is Chris Ina. Chris is from Wake Forest Baptist Health, and he's been an athletic trainer for 16 years. And he's the training coordinator at Wake Forest for the past 2 years, and he manages the 12 athletic trainers in our schools. So Chris is here to give us an update on how things are going within our schools and within our program here at Winston-Salem.
Hello, thank you everyone for inviting me tonight. Thanks John for the introduction. Again, my name is Chris Ina. I'm the athletic training coordinator for Wake Forest Baptist Health. My main role there is to manage the 12 athletic trainers at each of the high schools in Forsyth County. Every high school has an athletic trainer. They're there every day taking care of the student athletes, anything that they need from prevention to assessment to treatment to rehabilitation. They're full-time employees of the medical center, and we contract them out to the 12 schools in the county. Like John said, I'm an athletic trainer by trade. I worked 14 years at Wake Forest University in the athletic department, and you know, I came to the medical center because I was excited to run this program and be a part of this partnership with the school system. A few things that we've done over the years, or I should say over this past year, is my staff of 12 athletic trainers, we were able to certify over 350 high school coaches in CPR and AED use. You know, the medical center did that free of charge to those coaches. There was a state mandate saying that all coaches needed to have CPR training, and we were happy to provide that training to the coaches. We also supplied each school with equipment and supplies so they can continue that training throughout the year to faculty, staff, and anybody who is interested in becoming CPR certified. Another highlight of our program this year was we hosted a big high school physical event for all the kids in the high school system at our clinic over there on Sports Medicine Stratford. We were able to complete over 300 physicals for the kids in the high schools, and again, we did those free of charge. We had a host of volunteers from the medical center that gave up their time on a Saturday. The kids came over and we gave them all a good quality physical so they could participate in athletics this year. One of the nice things we offer at our location is we offer same day, next day service for student athletes. So there's no waiting to see a doctor if they need to see a specialist. All they do is give us a call, and our physicians are wonderful, working them into the schedule so they can be seen as quickly as possible and get that quality care. You know, this is a new program, and we're still working through some of the kinks, and we appreciate your support of our program. We're proud to be partners with you guys and taking care of the kids of this county. We take pride in providing those services to the school, and I take pride in running that program for the medical center. So I just wanted to say thank you for your support.
Thank you. So thank you for what you're providing for our student athletes. We appreciate that. And so on behalf of the board, we'll give you this certificate.
Thanks,
and
guys.
also I know they would like to shake your hand and say their appreciation as well. So if you just want to come back around. Thank you, Chris. At this time, I'll recognize Sam Dempsey for several special recognitions this evening.
Thank you, Chairman Jones, Dr. Emery, members of the board, and members of the community. It is a great honor and privilege to bring you this evening the North Carolina Teacher of Excellence for Exceptional Children from the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. We get one chance per year, and we have 500 teachers in special ed. So it is not an easy choice for us, and we go through and work very diligently at this. But Tamara Levy has been with us at the Children's Center. She is a preschool teacher there. She does an excellent job with some of our most involved children. It happens to be a class where we also have blended typical kids in the same room. Her husband, Jason, and her daughter, Emerson, are with us tonight. Stand up, Jason. And her principal, Samantha Manring. And her EC area director, Trish Moody. Stand up, Trish. But this is one of those things that every year we get one chance. And so of the hundreds of teachers we have, it is an outstanding opportunity to take one of our very best. We go to Greensboro. It's a very wonderful evening. There's a lot of recognition. There's always a representative from the governor's office, from the State Board of Education. There's music, usually by some of our kids. It's just a marvelous evening. So, Tamara? You can thank your producer. And
yes, I would like, no, I just want to thank, of course, my family. They are very patient as I work on IEPs and lesson plans and all sorts of stuff at night. Also, I want to thank Samantha and Trish and Sam. They are very supportive. They have been supportive of me and sometimes some crazy ideas that I have, but they have so far worked out. So I just want to say thanks, and it's good to see everybody.
So, you look like Sam. I can't believe you just told me to say something. Adults versus preschool students. Right? So
I could sing like Mr. Sun or something to get everybody involved. But
we might want you to do that. But thank you so much for what you do for our kids every day. and the impact that you have in their lives, and what a difference that also makes for their families. And so we are very proud of you. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
we'll give you this certificate. And then I know the board would like to also say hello and thank you as well.
Okay, thanks.
We'll just do one round of applause for full division. Thank you, Chairman Jones, Dr. Emery, members of the board and the community. It is a distinct honor to be able to do this once a year. In fact, I was in a family situation, and I actually got up at 3 a.m. this morning to fly back from Seattle. But this is important. We have gone from one school doing PBIS well, and we now have 31 that are getting state recognition. I know there's a lot of concern at this point in society and across the country and in our community about what we're doing about discipline and behavior and how we manage. This is a real success story. So positive behavior intervention support, and here's an example that I've been over with Dr. Emery already. We get $5,000 from the state, and we are spending close to $300,000 to cover the cost of support for the coaches and all that we do with these schools. We are, and this is research-based, it's got 35 years of research behind it, so we are only doing the things that we know will really make a difference. It's similar to the old RTI model and the triangle that you've seen before, but basically if you blend managing behavior, managing academics, and staff development, all oriented toward the same goals, you will get better results. And we've all seen this triangle of then about 80% of the kids do fairly well. That frees you up to work on the 15% that need more intensive help. You'll hear more about this as we talk more about MTSS, same triangle. And then the 5% on the top are the ones that really need the intensive interventions, and you have more time to do that. It's on a rotation that's moving a little faster than I'm able to talk tonight. This is an example of how the discipline referrals at Flat Rock have declined since they have been doing PBIS well. This is an example of how the behavior referrals at Walkertown Elementary have declined since they have been doing PBIS well. And this is our increase in the number of schools getting state recognition. So, without further ado, the green ribbon schools for this past year are, and I'll just call them and they'll all come across, and we'll do one round of applause for everybody in a division. But Ashley, Carter, Cook, East Forsyth Middle, Flat Rock, Forest Park, Griffith, Hall Woodward, Kimberly Park, Petrie, Philo Hill, Smith Farm, South Fork, Southwest, Spies, Union Cross, Walkertown Elementary and Walkertown Middle School, and Wiley Middle School. And if there are members of their teams, coaches, parents, other faculty from these schools also here tonight, please stand. Ladies and gentlemen, the Green Ribbon Schools from Winston-Salem South County Schools. And in the interest of time, I have the certificates, and we will give those to you. And if you will go ahead, Ashley, and start. Get a few extra handshakes in there. think we set it up on an automatic. Yeah. That's okay. Keep in mind, please, that each of these schools has their own team. This is not a canned program. They came up with their own norming for the schools. An example I frequently use is we happen to be Quakers, so we use first names. And that's fine for me when I'm in the classroom. But if they leave my classroom and go next door to Miss Parker's classroom, it's not okay to say Marilyn. So among the faculty, you have to agree. How do we want the children to address the adults? How do we want to proceed to the cafeteria? How do we want to handle bus? And once the school comes up with their own, everybody in the school agrees to it, everybody in the school supports it, that's where you get these kind of results. The model schools, that's the next level up, is Bolton Elementary, Gibson Elementary, Ibrahim, Kernersville Elementary, Conoke, Louisville, Lawrence Middle School, Middle Fork, Mineral Springs, Moore, Old Richmond, and if there are members of the faculty, other members of the team, principals, anybody else in the audience with these schools, please stand. Ladies and gentlemen, the model schools from the Winston-Salem South County School System, PBIS. And again, I have certificates from the board for each of you. Dan, if you'll just turn and start with Elizabeth. One of the things that has made this so successful is because each school has to develop their own parameters and stay faithful to them. We use a go slow approach. When the state first brought this out, they said, here, you can just train all 3 modules and say, here you go, do a good job. And we have instead approached it from, no, you're going to do module 1 and do that until your data is really improving, and then we will train you on module 2. Same thing. When you really get that ensconced and doing really well, then we will move to module 3. So our module 3 exemplar school from Winston-Salem South County Schools is North Hills Elementary School, and I know they have a bunch of folks out here. Stand up, North Hills. Stand up. This is the highest level that you can achieve as a school for PBIS. And if you'll I also have a certificate, if you'll turn and start with, thank you. You notice the banners keep getting bigger each time, too.
Congratulations. It's great to see your cheering crowd with you, right? Congratulations.
Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you to all of our schools for their hard work. That concludes our special recognitions for the evening, and we will move into public comments on agenda items. I have one person signed up to speak, Ms. Rhonda Mays.
Good evening, Chairwoman Jones, the board, Dr. Emery. Today, I want to address the issue about our security that's going to be on discussion tonight. One of the things I want to make certain that we're looking at when we're speaking of security is to make certain that we have the student services support people in place. Because before we talk about anything else, we need to make certain we have adequate nurses, social workers, counselors, psychologists, even our parent involvement coordinators and our family engagement coordinators in place in our schools where they can address some of the issues that our students are being confronted with. And so therefore, people don't have to resort to other ways of handling conflict. And that when we have these personnel, we have these educators in place, that they're actually allowed to do the job that they were hired to do. That their time is not being spent outside of their skill set, their skill level in which they are there for our students. Too often, a lot of our student services people are being used in other areas besides the area in which they were hired for. It is important that our counselors are available in our schools for our students, not doing other things. That's testing or anything else that's not directly related to working with our students and our families. So please, when you're looking at how to keep our schools safe, please make certain that you are also looking at the makeup of our student services support in each of our schools to make certain we have the people in place to help our students. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. That concludes our public comments on agenda items. We will move right into discussion items. First, we have Jonathan Wilson. We'll have a discussion again around reinforcing our school security recommendations. Good evening, Jonathan.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board, and Dr. Emery. So 2 weeks ago, I stood before you and spoke a little bit about our update on our current security plans and where we are at present. So 2 weeks ago, I stood in front of you and we talked about where we are with our current security and what we had done since the tragic events in Florida on Valentine's Day. Report since we last spoke, we've continued to look at our security plans. We've taken additional steps to close any gaps that we have found. We've updated some of our procedures and pushed those out to principals at the last joint principals meeting. We have held a training session that day at the joint principals meeting. We spent a lot of time talking about security and things that we could do better and to make sure that we were on the same page. We also, I told you last time that we were going to meet with the fire marshal the next day. We did meet with the fire marshal along with the SROs, and our lockdown plans were approved as they are written. We've also formed work groups to explore some new initiatives. But tonight I want to highlight an awareness campaign that we've pushed out to change our culture in our schools as it relates to identification amongst our staff and how we handle visitors in our school. Unlike some things that we do behind the scenes, this is something that will be seen by everybody who visits our school and those who work within our schools every day. So the first component of that is that we're going to require all Winston-Salem Forsyth County school staff to wear the ID that they're given and displayed at all times. It's the one that's around my neck, for instance. So this is a simple way for us to identify staff members in our hallways. So if we have 81 schools, it's very hard for me and for some of you guys when you walk through a hallway to determine who should be there and who should not. So this is a simple step. This will also allow visitors, as they're in the school, to know who is actually a school official. So if they have a question or they need to be directed in a certain area, that they know that this is actually a teacher that they're speaking with or someone on staff. And also in the event of a crisis, first responders will be quickly able to identify who's our staff member who could supply some assistance to those first responders. These ID badges will be required for all staff, like I said, to include bus drivers, food services, maintenance personnel, housekeeping, and our contracted employees will also have some form of identification so that when our contracted cleaning staff is in the building, that we'll know who those folks are as well. So currently, the way badges work is that at the central office level, we're given a badge that looks like this. It's the blue one. In the schools, they are given one that looks more, well, I don't know exactly what it looks like, but it looks more identified to the school itself because it's based on the pictures that are taken, and then the company sends IDs back to the school. But I think our HR department, well, I know our HR department is now working on a way to expedite and make more opportunities for staff to get ID badges in the future. Posters have been created, and here's one I think on the screen that will remind employees to wear their badge. So every day when I come into the office, when I go to the elevator, I see that sign that's been placed there to remind me that it should be around my neck. Secondly, we're implementing a new A-phone protocol. So again, the A-phone is the buzzer system on elementary schools. So when you push that buzzer, it gives the person inside the office a visual as to who's standing at the door and gives you the opportunity to have some dialogue to determine whether or not that person will be granted access to the building. So we have provided reminders and tips for the folks that will be answering that A-phone, and those things would include just questions, such as, do you have your Winston-Salem Forsyth County School ID? Or do you have some other form of ID? Who are you here to see? And if this person's granted access, please report to the office and sign in. At that time, then whatever visitor management system that the school is using, then they would be given a badge to wear through the hall. So not only are staff wearing this badge, but visitors are wearing a badge that is affixed to their clothing. These steps are not meant to be uninviting. They're not meant to slow people down each day, but we feel that these are necessary steps to take in light of current events and just in this day and time. We think that the benefits to that outweigh any inconvenience that it may cause. Lastly, we're asking that all staff be more aware as to who's coming and going through the doors each day. I've been taught since I was a child to hold the door, be polite, be courteous to the person. But that common courtesy that we've become accustomed to can actually work against us in our security plans. So we have to be more aware of somebody tailgating. So when I go into the door or when I go into the elevator in the morning, if somebody tries to follow me in, I need to, if they don't have an ID badge or something around their neck or on their clothes, then I need to ask them, could I help them and direct them to the right place. So again, that's not meant to be rude, but it's meant to ensure that our kids stay safe. Although these are simple things, we need to start asking questions. It's kind of uncomfortable sometimes to approach somebody because we want everybody to know that we're familiar with them or to think that they're special to us, but just to ask those questions, can I help you? Again, high school campuses remain a challenge, but these steps, minus the A-phones, which will be soon in our middle schools, as they are in elementary, those are not coming to high schools because those campuses are a different layout. But these same steps, being aware who's there, wearing the ID badges, asking questions, will work to keep those campuses safer as well. So these are very simple steps. These cost us very little more money than we're already spending. We already have the procedures in place. We just need to tighten up on them a little bit, and we just need to change our culture to be more aware of our surroundings and what's going on. And again, we know that it may be uncomfortable and slow down a little bit, but we feel like that we can do this and still be a welcoming environment and still have great customer service.
Questions for Jonathan at this time? Ms. Motsinger.
One of the things, because obviously we've all been doing all the reading we can, not only this time, but after Sandy Hook, after many of these school shootings. And one of the things that seems to be really in front of our faces, but often not addressed directly, is similar to what Ms. Mays brought up, which is having people in our buildings whose job it is to help make sure we're attending to all children. Focusing on climate very intentionally and specifically, because creating a lockdown environment for our children has a cost as well, an enormous cost. I'm really, is anybody doing research on what that's costing young children? But I want to make sure that when we talk about safety, that we really talk about the soft human things that seem to really make a difference. And that security doesn't just look at locks and cameras and equipment. One of the things about the young men involved in these shootings is that they were students at the schools, so they don't look different. They don't look like, what are you doing here? They look like you actually should be welcome here. You went to school here just a couple years ago. And I want to know what, as a district, we're doing to bring in the professionals who work in our district on school climate, on making sure that children aren't disappearing, on making sure that the awkward, perhaps even difficult to get along with 7th grade boy has somebody giving him positive attention and engaging with those students. So I really feel like it's very important that there is so much research now about how those things are very, very important for our children, and they're harder to get at, but probably more essential.
Well, I'm just going to address that just for a second. So I think last time I spoke to you and kind of gave you some examples of things that our SROs are doing to engage students and to build relationships with students. So I think that, you know, Dr. Symington's group in Student Services and I work pretty closely when Corliss and I kind of tag team off each other. So I'm more fixed on the hard security and to make sure that the kids stay secure within their buildings. But I do agree that there's a lot that we can do on that end, and our SROs are buying right into that and working on our PBIS model. They were trained, I think, the next day from the last time I spoke to you guys, or at least to the same week, and so they have some of they're already doing some of those things, but I think to reinforce and to see what our expectations are.
What I think is really important is that we're publicly talking about those things, that the message out to the community is not just, here's the camera, here's the iPhone, here's the security badge, but here's our community, these are our children, how are we taking care of their needs? And making sure that that message, if that's truly a district-wide message, is communicated as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And Ms. Monsinger, to address your concerns, maybe at a future meeting, we could have some of those folks talk to us as well.
If we have a task force in the district that perhaps includes students and includes employees to really focus on this, because the soft stuff often is seen as so soft that it's not really worth our attention. And yet, it seems to be the soft things that really make a difference as to whether this is a district you want to work in, whether our kids are happy to come to school every day, whether we are a community of caring, or whether people just feel we're a scarier place.
Thank you, Ms. Monsinger.
Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jonathan, appreciate your update on this. I think that one of the most difficult jobs that I can imagine is trying to figure out how we are able to harden our schools from a safety standpoint while still looking at the climate, as Ms. Monsinger has pointed out. What are we looking at doing? We obviously appreciate staff and everything they've done, but we often refer to our teachers as some of our frontline people in dealing with our students because they're with them every day. What are we doing at the classroom level to help teachers to plan, to implement a plan if they ever needed to protect their students?
So I think this past week when we met with principals at the joint principals meeting and we gave them some ideas to go back, we actually went through a lockdown drill ourselves, and I don't want, maybe I'm talking too deep into what you're asking, but we kind of went through a scenario, to kind of be more, pay attention to what your schools look like, looking for vulnerable areas. We need teachers to kind of be looking at what's a vulnerable area on a playground. You know, if you have a custody issue that you're aware of, you're making sure that you're keeping eyes on that student. So obviously the folks who deal with our students each and every day have the best eyes. They're going to give us the best information, and I think that they're obviously our first line of defense. It is not just about hardening a target, because we can put, I said this past week, we can put bollards in front of every door and affix those things with all kind of construction to make it almost impenetrable, but it's not going to change the climate. So I think there's some work to do, but I think we're on the right track.
We do, though, once a semester do a drill. And as much as it's heartbreaking to the points that have already been made here, that children have to practice where's the safest place in a room, and we do that once a semester in this district. So I think that's part of what you were also asking,
Yes.
which is do we go through that? And unfortunately, we have to. And we've also talked about how we change those drills up, because sometimes our most vulnerable things happen. You know, do we do an imaginary or a drill while there's a large number of students in a cafeteria or at dismissal, because those are vulnerable points for us as well. So
yeah, not to jump in too much, but the protocols at the state level have changed. So in the first 5 days of school, teachers are required to see a video. Now it used to be you hunker down. Now it's called run, hide, fight. Did I get that in the right order?
Yes.
So that video is online through YouTube, but all of our staff members are required to see that in the first 5 days of school, and we do 2 lockdown drills a year. But there is some that the protocols have changed drastically over the years, to where you used to just hunker down, close the blinds, and now it's kind of find your spot, decide what you want to do, whether you want to stay or run, and that's really challenging for us.
Sure.
Because you know, in a situation where something like that happens, the first thing they want to know is, let me see a roster, and if you can't identify where everybody is, that makes things really challenging for us. So, but that is sort of the state protocol now.
Okay. Well, appreciate that. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Daryl.
Let me, if they have another question, but I just want to make a comment. So some of the things that we are talking about, wear your badge, check in, those things that we want to do as administrators, visitors when we were visiting schools. So today at Griffith Elementary, they had a celebrity reader day, and staff there did an amazing job of taking the time to ask questions when people were buzzing in, because it was a mix. People were there for reading, but people were there to pick up children, and then also directing us to check in. So though we had on our badges, or I had mine on, but still checking in, knowing who's in the building and checking out. But I think we probably, as board members and those, can talk to our parents and to some of our study buddies and coaches and mentors, that this, even though you've been that face in that building doing wonderful things and volunteering for 10 or 15 years, we need you to do this now, and if nothing else, by setting those examples. So that the message is out there, and I saw that firsthand today, and that is working. Board members, we had, Jonathan, if you'll stay, because we may get some questions about this, but I believe that, so earlier tonight, we spoke in our building and grounds meeting around the postponement of the Meadowlark campus traffic project. And by postponing that for a couple of years, that was paid for by bond funds. In light of some of the things that have gone on in our talks around security, Board, would you have some conversation or be willing to look at approaching our county commissioners, since that is in the first part, the Meadowlark traffic studies in the first part of this bond money that we've received, and we're pushing that back and asking them for us to be able to switch that. And we had, if you'll remember, several security pieces to that. All of our elementary schools have the A phones, am I right, Jonathan?
Yes, ma'am.
And so that would put the A phones in our middle schools.
Yes.
And then also that would give camera enhancements to all of our schools. Is that correct?
To bring it up to a district standard, yes, ma'am.
To bring it up to a district standard. So we have some conversation or be willing to do that and talk to our commissioners about making that adjustment to our bond funds.
Madam Chairman, I believe that if the opportunity as it has presented itself is there, that we should take advantage of that opportunity. I think it would be an excellent idea to look at this postponement and ask the county commissioners to reallocate those funds for our use.
Okay. Other comments or board members?
You know, Madam Chair, I'd be willing to make a motion if that's appropriate. That I'll make a motion that we move that particular money from traffic to the safety. Take that to our county commissioners.
It's fine.
Okay.
We can do that.
My request
Yes. Ms.
is that if we're talking about putting more money into equipment, we make a commitment, a solid, real commitment to having a school climate task force that talks absolutely about these other issues so that they don't just get put to the back, but that anything that we commit to doing includes, there will be a task force, it will include school employees, it will include students' voices, it will include Dr. Symington, it will include safe and drug-free schools, it will include people involved in Rachel's Challenge, but that we will absolutely commit to having a force that is focused on safe and warm schools and not just safe fortresses.
And I hear you, Ms. Motzinger. I believe they're the same, but they're two separate things.
I understand, but what I'm saying is if we're about to have a vote,
Right.
the time to get something through is usually when it's tied to something else. And I would like us to make that commitment that if we're willing to move up our money on safety, we're also going to move up our commitment to school climate and to creating safe schools by way of relationships.
Okay. And we are
Like to amend.
And so honestly, if we would like to, we don't really have to make a motion on this at this time. I think if it was just general consensus that we could just say, are we willing to do that? So I don't believe a formal action needs to be taken to go ask the commissioners for that. And we're also still in the discussion part of our agenda. And so I think it was just brought up that if we, by show of hands and heads waving that we're willing to do that, then we could ask Dr. Emery and staff to reach out to
So
the
again,
commissioners.
I'm asking
Right.
for a commitment from this board.
Okay, I understand. I don't think we have to do that in the motion, though.
I was just
Ms.
going to say,
Parker.
could we just as well just start, I think Dr. Symington would be the normal person to
Yes.
head up that committee, that we could, as a part of this tonight, just get that kind of in the works, and maybe a couple of board members with Dr. Symington start to see what that might look like, so we could go ahead and get that in the works and move forward with both pieces at the same time, because they probably have a lot to add to each other. So
Yes, and I'm sure that Dr. Symington and his team are already doing some of those things as we speak. And so, point taken, I believe the board's committed to helping look at what that looks like. Dr.
I think
Emery?
we have lots of people looking at that in their own circles. So as we went this last month through the budget process and we heard from school psychology and we heard from counselors, we heard this echo. And I think everybody in their own department is looking at, can I do something differently? Can I do something more? I think this is just connecting the dots so that we don't miss out on a good strategy or a good idea. And so one of the things I want to reinforce here to our community is I don't want anyone to walk away thinking this isn't already going on. It may not be to the task force level you talk about, Elizabeth, but I know for a fact Corliss is looking at how do we expand the mental first aid courses, because we all of a sudden have lots of staff who want to take that course so that in their classrooms or in the hallways they can do a better job of identifying kids who have needs, that might be different or unique or difficult for us to see and diagnose and understand. So I do think this is going on in separate departments across the district, but I think there is merit in how could we bring those folks together to really talk about what collective impact might look
Absolutely.
like.
And I wasn't meaning to imply that we don't have many people committed to climate, because we do. We have so many good people in this district doing the hardest work possible. I want us to, as a board, as a district, be very committed to climate, and how easy it is to make that second or third or fourth on the list. And yet, I think that is the thing that makes our schools safest. And I think it's important when we talk about safety that we're very intentional. And that's all I'm asking for, is a commitment at the board level that this matters and that we all care about making sure that we're intentional.
And I will say, so I think to everyone's point, it may be good to hear and to share with our community some of the things that we're already doing, much like we've talked about more of the harder security pieces, but be able to do that at a future meeting. And I believe it is our intent that we want to keep our children safe and our staff safe. So all the things that we need to do as a board and support together, climate in the building, the security, everything that we can do within our measure, within our control, we definitely want to do that. So I'm seeing from heads and body language that we are good with going to the commissioners about that, and also we'll start to put something together to bring back to the board to see what we're already doing. Okay, wonderful. Any other questions of Jonathan at this time? Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you for what you've done since February 14th. I think we also have to thank our administrators, those who are in the buildings every day, for how they've managed this, we appreciate that. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we have two other items for discussion this evening. The first is the Finance Committee report. Vice Chairman Barr.
Sure. In the Financial Committee report, we discussed 3 items: amendment and transfer. And also in that meeting, we noted the financial support that our Title I schools get, and I think that was really interesting. And then also we discussed the new financial process that our new CFO will bring to a public meeting. And then we discussed the chrono timekeeping, and we asked that group to go back and bring us some more numbers as far as if we are saving money or if we're not.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. Next, we have the Building and Grounds Committee report. We touched on a lot of things this evening. I'll go over that briefly. We had some discussion around closing 11th Street, which is a street that's basically on our campus in between Career Center and Kennedy. Some discussion around a contract with Supreme Maintenance. Kind of finalized some changes that we had for our policy 8120, which is school naming and facilities. We'll talk about that and finalize that in policy in another week. And we talked about, we approved some of the stadium replacement schematic designs, and also we talked around reasons why to postpone the Metal Arc campus traffic project. So that was what we talked about earlier in Building and Grounds. That concludes our items this evening for discussion, and that moves us into action items. Board, we have several action items in front of us at this time. First, to consider approval of budget amendment number 4 and transfer number 4. So I have a motion by Vice Chairman Barr. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Vic Johnson. Do I have any discussion? I will say that I have, earlier in finance today, we talked about some of the procedures that we have put in place since December, and it was good to hear those. I think it will be important for us to at some time hear it here in the room so that people will know that we have really put some extra checks and balances in for our finances and to be extra transparent. Today I asked the question of have all of the things that are on our budget amendment and transfer gone through this process? And I believe the answer to that was no, and that some of that is timing. So because of that, I will not be voting for this, but feel that we are in a really good place as far as bringing extra transparency and accountability to our funding. So having a motion and a second, all in favor? All opposed? So the motion carries with 2 in opposition. Next, we have consider approval of postponement of the Meadowlark Campus Traffic Project. Do I have a motion to approve? So moved. Mr. Singletary, second. Ms. Parker, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Consider approval of surplus property, and that's 1350 Thurman Street. Do I have a motion to approve? So moved. Vice Chairman Barr, second. Ms. Elizabeth, do I have any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Consider approval of the Glenn High School Stadium replacement schematic drawings. Do I have a motion to approve? Mr. Singletary and second by Mr. Johnson. Do we have any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. And consider approval of Supreme Maintenance Contract for J.F. Kennedy High School. Do I have a motion to approve? Ms. Parker, do I have a second? Ms. Clark, any discussion or comments?
I'll just again add my comment that I would prefer that our day porters are always school system employees and not contract employees, partly because I believe that they should be members of our school community, including all of the benefits that go with that. So I am opposed to replacing a day porter with a contract employee. Part of safety and relationship is making sure the people in our buildings are school system employees as much as possible.
Thank you, Ms. Monsinger. So having a motion and a second on the floor, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That concludes our action items for this evening. We have 2 items on our consent agenda: approval of the meeting minutes for February 27th, 2018, and approval of the general personnel report. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you, Mr. Singletary. Second, Mr. Johnson. All in favor? Motion carries. We will now open our meeting up to public comments. This portion of our meeting, we have several folks signed up.
Thank you for joining us on your school channel, Cable 2.